Welcome to Afros and Audio's podcast interview series.
Mhm.
This is Heard for the Black History Month series that we do every February. And with me today is Chisa Pennix-Brown. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Yes, Black history is something that I love. So I'm glad that I get to be a part of this.
Yes, this has been an awesome series with some amazing creators, and you happen to be one of them. So let's jump in.
Mhm.
Real Ass Affirmations
Yes.
is designed to incite calmness in a
Mhm.
chaotic world. What motivated you to create this unique style of affirmation podcast?
My mom passed and my best friend passed. And so those were the motivations because I needed to get things out. And so when I originally started it, it was really my way to talk to myself as if they would have been here. And
Mm,
I cuss a lot when it's friendly kind of things and it's not regular business. And I know that may sound terrible, but just in the way that you communicate. And so that was one of those things where I feel like sometimes in order to get yourself in check, you need to cuss at yourself a little bit. Like you need to have somebody that's going to do that for you. And so for me, it was kind of me talking to myself, but then what it's turned into is other people feeling, you know what, you're the friend that I needed. I needed to hear that. I needed you to cuss at me today in a nice way. And so that's how it really started.
the byproduct of the pain,
Mhm.
what occurs when you take that pain and you create the messaging behind it.
Mhm.
But I don't love the pain, and I'm so sorry for your losses with your mother and your best friend.
Mhm.
I'm sure that impacted you greatly, and to be able to create something from it, what a legacy, even for them.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things where you can handle things in a lot of different ways. And so I'm always the person who I don't like to stay in grief if I could get out of it. And I don't particularly care for hospitals. And so it was always one of those things where I felt like if people were sick or they were hurt or something, let's have fun with it, right? Like, not make fun of a situation, but let's give you a reason to laugh because sometimes that's the only thing that you can do. And affirming that you do feel this way, because I think that's an important factor too. You can't tell people how to grieve, you can't tell people how to be happy. But what you can do is you can give them something that gives them some type of introspection and allows them to say, I feel like I can get out of this today. And to me, that was really what it was. And so it's turned into lessons with business. It's definitely stuff with relationships. And it also is just you dealing with yourself and being able to talk yourself into a situation that's better than what you were in.
Hmm. Absolutely. Affirmations,
Mhm.
we all have access to being able to transmute
Mhm.
those feelings and be our own alchemists. We
Mhm.
all have access to shifting. Not a lot of us know that or use it, but we have access to it. And so having this in podcast form, I think is so beneficial to so many. So once again, thank you for using this platform to share these messages that you have because it
Mhm.
is important. It really is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So your podcast blends mindfulness, humor, and real talk. How do you strike the balance between being witty, petty, and insightful?
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying petty because that's one of the things that I actually relish in. And it's weird because I have this thing that I call petty business. And so petty business for me is I see what you're doing over there and it's probably some nonsense and some foolishness, but I'm going to stay doing what I'm doing over here. Like I'll come, I'll look, but I'm not really trying to get into what you're doing. So it's a personality thing. I'm from New York. And I think New York is definitely one of those places where it's an internal built in DNA of pettiness, if you will. But it's also just understanding that there is another way to communicate with people. So when I look at what resonates with me, I do like affirmations, but I felt like some of them were just too cookie cutter. And I felt like if I was going to talk to somebody and be as genuine as I could be, let me talk how I talk. And I wanted to make it short. So all of the episodes are really short, but they also go through things that real people went through. So in the conversations that I would have with people, I was like, hold up, that's a real ass affirmations right there. And it wasn't that I'm like telling too much of someone else's business, but it was that what you're going through, somebody else is definitely going through, maybe not in the same exact way, but there is this ability for us to all reach a common ground of we've been through something. Maybe not the exact same situation, but we understand what it is to have to code switch. We understand what it is to have somebody that wants to belittle what you're doing. We understand what it is to want to scream and maybe you can't. But if you can listen to this podcast for about 5, 10 minutes, that can be your release for you to scream while you're on a lunch break from a job that maybe you don't want to go into, or that you're ready to leave and you're ready to quit, and you realize, oh, I have real bills to pay. So how about I just come listen to this and I scream and I cuss for a little bit and then I go back to work. It was just really giving people a way to have an outlet. And I think that that's what has probably resonated with people most, is they say that we feel like we're friends. And I like that.
Yeah. I love the clarity around why you did
Mm-hmm.
this work, and also understanding that while you're giving somebody else the opportunity to scream, this is you giving yourself to this, and this expression is cathartic and it allows space for us to get out what's in, and the benefit
Mm-hmm.
is the support of others. I really love that about the message, the why, and your reason for continuing the work and the podcast in and of itself. So you call it mental wealth.
Yep.
What does that mean to you, and how do you incorporate it into your podcast and the broader work with entrepreneurs?
I look at mental wealth, and I felt like going through COVID, it was a whole lot of in the house that you weren't used to. And I'm an extrovert, so it took a little while to get used to not being around people. And now I'm still an extrovert, but I need more time to not be around people. I give so much when we're out here. And so, like, our company is called Give It to the People. And we named it that because we have another podcast called Give It to the People. And that's how we started that business. So for me, this business originally started to see what we can do to help other people grow. And that's the same thing with the podcast. What is it that I have that maybe somebody else doesn't have, and I can put out into the world? And you might not even expect that it will be as big or as great, or maybe it's reaching more people than you thought that it would reach. And so what I see is, if there's times that I'm not podcasting, people are like, I miss it. Can you come back? Can you do some more episodes? Or I really love this one episode and I keep playing it over and over again when I'm going through certain things. And so for me, you missing it is one of the things where it's okay, we definitely need to make sure that we record more episodes because it was necessary, or is necessary. And then in entrepreneurship, I don't think people understand how brave you have to be an entrepreneur. It is much harder to get up every day. And when you're getting paid, you are going to have that check when it's supposed to be there and it's going to direct deposit. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're doing this, you actually have to continually go get money. There are things that you have to get into that maybe at a regular job you wouldn't have to. So just in dealing with people and politics and moving in different cities and who's in charge of such and what you have to say, the nuances of those things need some type of outlet for that. So if I'm saying to myself, okay, you know what, I'm stressed, what do I do in order to get the next thing? Sometimes it's just really sitting down and just calm. And so when we talk about what's inside of Real Ass Affirmations, looking at the fact that what I like to do in a lot of them is breathe, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people realize how much breath work can calm you and does bring clarity and does bring a sense of, okay, I can tackle this now. And so a lot of them, especially in the first beginning episodes, probably like the first, I don't know, 30, 40 episodes, there's breathing in it. And so we alternate back and forth. But I think that just realizing what you need on a daily basis, you have to breathe, right? And so having that as a part of it, but also affirming what you are good at and what you need to stop doing in order to be successful, it all ties into each other.
It does. And the intentionality of it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to say, I need to pause, and I'm going to intentionally pause.
Definitely.
I see your email.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the phone. But right now, I'm being very intentional with my time
Mm-hmm.
and being able to present that to people. See, this world is there's a great need for disruption
Mm-hmm.
because we are just moving. We're
Yep.
moving fast. There's a lot of people telling us a lot of things of how to do it, and to have something that says you get to do this different, you get to do this in a way that supports you
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and you alone. The world is there and it's going to be there, but I love the intentionality behind the message and the work. It really
Yes.
is so important, for sure. So you mentioned receiving DMs. I asked you in the intake, we talk about what are those wins, right?
Uh-huh.
And getting feedback, especially positive feedback, is
Mm-hmm.
always a great win. Can you share any particularly memorable messages or interactions that reaffirmed your purpose as a podcaster?
Yes, I had an interview with one young lady who works in mental health herself. And we had an interview because she was like one of the biggest fans. And I was like, okay, let me, because typically I don't have anybody else on the podcast with me, right? Like I've had probably one or two people on the podcast as far as actual episodes. And that's just because it was more so my point of view in relation to how I'm seeing the world and addressing a certain problem or issue or circumstance. And this one young lady, she was just like, you don't even understand how this helped save my life. And then I'm using it with other people. And the thing is, you expect, I think sometimes, and so maybe this is an expectation of just Blackness in general, that if you're on the cover and you look like you look, you're probably going to attract people that are like you, right? Type of way. And so for me, everybody, the hair is the thing. Even though actually when I first did that podcast and the cover art and everything, I still have black hair. Now my hair is colored all the time. So we're going to change the cover art for next year going into that so that it's more representative of who I am now. And that was one of those things where I'm just like, wow, like you don't look anything like me. You know what I'm saying? And I believe she was Iranian. Now, she did have color hair, so that was one thing that we got on nose rings and tattoos, and you don't look anything like me, and your experiences are totally, completely different. And you're dealing with people that are in drug issue type things as far as the mental health aspect, totally, completely different. But then you're telling me that it's helping you and that you're sharing things with other people. And then in addition to that, I had gotten somebody from who I really want to work with, which is NAMI. So NAMI is the mental health organization worldwide, right? And then they sent me something from the NAMI in Florida, and they were like, our patients have been like, so I'm sitting over here. First of all, this was not my intent, right? Like I figured black people would like me. And I'm not saying that everybody else doesn't like me, but it's so interesting when you see suburban white, let's just say, or Jewish women, and they're like, oh my God, I love your episode. I think that people can understand when they say real, recognize real. Everybody has their version of somebody that's a little abrasive and it's necessary for survival, right? So when you start to think about it, it's the Italian or the Jewish mother or the African mother, right? And each of them has their way, but you understand that they all mean good. It's one of those things where they might not tell you exactly how you want it, but they're going to give it to you how they need to give it to you. And then it's your job to receive it. I feel like it's like that. And so it's interesting when you see people that love it. And then even if you want to go a step further, somebody came all the way. We did a summit and came from Jersey to come down to North Carolina because of the podcast. Did I think that was going to happen? Right. And so it's one of those things where it turns out to be something bigger than you expected, because I think if you're genuinely giving from your heart, people receive that and it's not who you thought it was going to be, but that's good too.
Wow. And for sake of being corny as hell right now, those are some real ass affirmations for you.
Yes. It was how affirming that is.
Yes.
I couldn't have imagined that's what would have happened. And I love it when people are just like, it was so funny. I went to this thing. So we have this Black Wall Street thing here, the
Okay.
initiative. I go into the first meeting and I don't necessarily want to call it a cohort, but that's kind of like what it was. And so here specifically in Durham, and I go and I'm sitting there and the young lady comes and she sits next to me. She's always this seat taken. And I'm like, no, you can sit here. I don't own any seats in here. And she just kept staring at me. And so the New York in me is, what's good? What are you looking at? And she was like, hold up, what's your name? And I was like, Chisa. And she was like, do you do the podcast, the real life? I was like, yes. And so stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
You know that those are your people, right? Because they never met you, but they listen to you. And then you have this kinship with people. And I think that it's really great, especially when I think the people that I intended it to be for really love it. And so with Black History, I really did it for Black people. And that's an affirming thing for me too.
For sure. For sure. I love those stories. Thank you. Thank you for sharing them.
Yes.
How has your podcast helped build a community around the themes of mental health, self care, and confidence?
Oh, okay. So we actually have a membership called Give It, Get It membership. And it is in relation to business, right? To really helping people grow their business. And so when we talk about the mental health aspect of things, our goal is to work with more therapists and to do things that allow business owners and entrepreneurs to understand that they're not by themselves. One thing that I'm always going to prescribe is real ass affirmations. I'm also an author of a book called The 90-Day Focus, Your Action Plan for Success. So I use my book in the way that we teach people how to deal with themselves and how to plan and strategize their own lives. So it's used in a way where I'm like, listen, this is available. I just need you to understand it's going to be plenty of cussing in here. But if you need that and you like that kind of thing, then you might want to take a listen. And it, we use it in a way where it's like it's a cathartic outlet for people. And I think that's how it's been able to travel. And then people listen to it and then they're hooked.
Your podcast in with your work as the entrepreneur, as the business owner, and community builder and leader. And you
Mm-hmm.
integrate all aspects of it. And a lot of people, especially when they're multi hyphenated
Yep.
entrepreneurs or creatives, they tend to feel disjointed. I don't know how this will go with this. And for you to do that, was that something was that was organic? Was it immediate, or did you have to figure out like the puzzle pieces on the floor? Okay, now I see where this goes, and I see where this can go. How did that come about for you?
Well, I think because I speak a lot and I teach a lot, you find your people, right? Like you find who you can say that this is okay to. But what I started doing, and this is one of the easiest ways that I can say for people, is I put it in my bio. So when people are reading it, when they're announcing who you are, whatever, real ass affirmations is going to pique somebody's attention. And so then what do they do immediately? They get their phone out and then they're like, ooh, and they press follow. So for me, that has been the easiest way to get people to listen to it, even if I'm in a setting that it may not necessarily be 100% appropriate. And so I think that has been an easy way just to transition it, but it depends on what I'm at. And so we've done things where I have spoken before and then I'll lead a meditation and then tell people go ahead and listen to the podcast. And so I think it's literally being intentional, like you said, about letting people know that you have it. And even though at first I kept them separate, but that was just because I was like, this is a totally separate audience. I just want to just do what I want to do and say what I want to say over here. And then the other one was meant more so as an interview kind of podcast and to really just be completely professional. But I think once you start to look at it, a lot of times with Black people, we tend to think in those terms, professional and not professional. But then I'm like, that's who I really am. So I am going to be this person, but I can also talk to you about all kinds of things to market your business, to get contracts. So I'm both of those things. And so I don't feel like I should have to choose. And a lot of times I think that's what we do. But when you look at, and I always say, the audacity of white cisgender men, they do whatever they feel like doing. And only because I'm trying to be respectful did I not say the word, but that's what they do. So when you look at Gary Vee being one of the biggest people that's out here, and he cusses all the time, but nobody says he's not professional. He's always got on a t-shirt and some jeans or some sneakers or something, but they don't question his professionalism. But then when you start to look at Black people, it's people worry about your hair and this and that. And I know it's a lot of people that said things to me like, oh, you're going to do all of the colors in your hair. That's not as professional. Do you understand that's part of the thing that attracts people to me? So just because you don't feel comfortable doing it doesn't mean that I can't do it. It's a conversation starter. You know what I mean? Because people just want to ask questions. And the people that typically ask me the most questions are actually white cisgender men because they want to know how long it took. And then it's funny because you can see the ones that are really older and they'll be like, yeah, I remember when I was in my 20s, I used to cut my hair off and I used to dye it and stuff. And now you don't have any hair, sir, because you were doing that in your 20s. But it's this feeling of we're connected in some way, shape, or form. So I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to have to choose. I just kept it separate because I wanted to build it as its own audience and then see what was going to happen. And things just started working out. And so that was good.
Yeah, and with the deliberateness of repression,
Mhm.
oppression, and suppression, right? That
All the
happens
pressions.
from all the pressures from the time that you come out of
Mhm.
the womb, start your education, and blah 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 blah, socialized constructs.
Mhm.
You being audacious enough to be
Mhm.
your full self, like
Mhm.
we need more people to
Mhm.
understand what bringing your full self to anything that you do, how it changes everything,
It
not
does.
just for the people that you serve and support or you contribute to, but to yourself. I
Mhm.
don't have to perform here because I
Mhm.
refuse to perform here in a way that doesn't serve me first. It's beneficial But this is why disruption is so necessary. And just by you showing up in the way that you do becomes possibility for
Yeah.
others.
I went to a conference, and I don't know if your conference is different because I think people feel comfortable in their blackness. And let's just say majority black or it's mixed. What you will see is the majority of people show up in black.
Mm.
And I mean, I have on black today. I have what I consider a uniform because one thing that I did think was interesting when they talked about people that were millionaires and they were just like, they don't want to have decision fatigue when it comes to what they're going to wear. So I started buying stuff that was really easy to wear throughout the week. But when it's time for one of my events, it's color all over the place, right? And so, I walk into an event and I've got on orange from head to toe, sneakers on. Why? Because my husband in COVID started getting me sneakers and I was like, I'm not messing with the heels no more. So I'm going to be comfortable. So when I see the ladies tiptoeing around and I see that pinky toe starts hurting on them, I'm just like, listen, my toes are good because we got on the Air Force, we got on the Air Maxes, right? We're good over here. And I think that is something where, even if you look historically, we are a colorful people. Most brown people in the world are a colorful people, but somebody told us that wasn't what we should be. And in order to be professional, you should wear gray, navy blue, maybe brown, and definitely black. And it's no room for any other kind of expression. So one person that I love is Ms. Wanga over at Essence,
Essence.
because she takes it all the way up, literally
Yes.
mean from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. And she is giving more people permission to say, I can be in these boardrooms and they're coming to get me. You know what I mean? And so even looking at Boz, and she's been at a bunch of different companies, badass Boz, right? And she's doing all kinds of wonderful things and just being a beautiful, dark skinned Black woman. And people are accepting it because she's just being her. We don't really have a choice but to be us, right? And to be Black. But we do have a choice with what we wear and how we show up in the world to people. And I don't feel like I need to try to cover that up. Now, mind you, if you wear black every day and that's what your thing is and you're comfortable in it, that's fine. But if that's not the thing and you also want to stand out, then pop a little piece of color in there. Do something. When you have the opportunity to speak, especially if you're a podcaster, make sure that you tell people who you are when you're in those rooms, because you don't know, that person could be your next guest. That might be your next sponsor. That person might become a client and they're interested in it, because as saturated as they think this industry is, it's not enough Black people still.
At all.
And so what
Yeah.
you're doing is super important because you have a community of education around it, but also just nurturing people in their own creativity. And that's something special that should be applauded. So I just want to say
Absolutely.
thank you for what you do, because it's necessary.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate it. And again, so much respect what you're saying. And it just brings up that quote that those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind.
Tell them.
We get to be liberated in our
Mm-hmm.
own experiences, because what the hell else are we doing if we are not choosing liberation in
Mm-hmm.
every aspect of it?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
You've developed a love for creating content that reaches people. We've been
Mm-hmm.
talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
What fuels your creativity and how do you stay motivated to produce new episodes?
That's really a good question. I think when I look at the fact that you're always going through something. So if I look at how I look at life in a 90-day focus, where I want to be in 90 days, I have to do some stuff now in order to get there. And so depending on, and I think it's different too, if I'm batching episodes as opposed to doing a one-off. And so the person that was doing all of my editing and everything like that, I don't edit anything with Real Ass Affirmations. So if it's a bump, if it's a whatever, if I call, because I want it to just be that and be raw. So it's not meant to be one of those podcasts that's fully edited and scripted and whatever. I think about what I want to say. I'll write out like a topic or kind of an outline, but then I allow myself the freedom to say whatever's on my mind at that particular point in time. So it's never, I'm going to say A, B, C, D. I don't do that because it wouldn't sound natural and it wouldn't just flow. And then sometimes when I'm finished with an episode, I'm like, dag, I wish I would have said XYZ, because that would have been good. And then I'm just like, okay, just hold that for another episode. So when I'm batching, what I try to do is I try to like think about, what do I want to say in a certain order? so that they can build upon each other, so that this way every week is more like a lesson and then it goes from one. But that's how I teach. But if I'm just like, listen, somebody made me mad, my attitude is not what it needs to be, let me go ahead and record that right now. And then the only editing is adding like a little commercial at the end of it. And so for me, it is really, how am I feeling? And did I think about the topics that I wanted to write about, or when, excuse me, that I wanted to talk about? Because when I sit and I write down what I'm thinking about, I'll get inspiration from all over. It could be that I saw a quote that was out there. It could be I watched somebody's video and then it's my interpretation of how I felt about what they said. It could be I'm watching a situation unfold and I'm like, okay, that would be a good thing to talk about. Or it could be a conversation. I think you get inspiration from a whole lot of different areas. And then what I do is I take a topic and I'll put it inside of my phone. If I feel like I need more to just remember what the cue was for that, I'll put maybe little bullet points, but I never write it like a full sentence or anything like that. So it's just more of I'm inspired by what I saw, what I heard, what I felt, and then that becomes an episode.
Mm, mm. That's great information. You mentioned that's how you teach, having those transferable skills that
Mhm.
support the structure and the format and the way in which you deliver the message in general
Mhm.
is really important, and being able to bring that to it and say, yeah, I have that skill, why
Mhm.
not use it here?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Okay. So you aim to host more live in-person episodes in 2025, and judging
Yes.
from this, I'm sure that the people that come out can't wait for you to do this as well. So
Mhm.
what do you enjoy most about connecting with your audience in a live setting, and how does it differ from traditional recording?
Oh, I'm by myself. So when I'm recording, it's either me by myself or me and then the engineer that I use. It's no audience. So it's just me feeding off of me. So it's funny when somebody's in the room and they're laughing, but they know that they can't laugh because we're recording. You like really hit it when a person is like, what? So I never say I'm going to do such and such, because I like to get a genuine reaction from the person that's in the room. So I think the most I've ever had in the room has been like me and two other people. But when you are live, and see, this is the difference. So I've done more meditational type things, but I've never recorded real ass affirmations live. So I've done my other podcast, Give It to the People live, and we've had a live audience and then we interviewed the people and stuff, but I've never done real ass affirmations live. So I think it would be really good to tie that in with some beverages and a little food, and then also get direct feedback from people like while they're there. So that's one of the things I'm excited about, because then you get real, genuine, this is how I'm feeling, this is how this made me feel, and then I feel like that can spark a conversation which then can go a little bit deeper. And so the thing is figuring out like, what do you want to talk about and what you think would be important to the type of audience that would come. And so my audience for the most part here is typically Black, typically women, and it's mixed when it comes to that. And so if I know that we put out certain types of events, that's the type of person who's coming. But you also, because we've never done a live of real ass affirmations, it might surprise me who comes. And I think it's also in how you frame it. So if I were to frame it and Nami was a sponsor or Nami was a participant, it might bring out different people because of who you're working with. But if I did it with another podcaster, I think just figuring out how to frame it and who it's really for, that can make a big difference. And I would just want to do something that's intimate and keep it small, because what we like to do is we call them micro gatherings. So those are going to be our events that are 50, 30 people or less, and keep it really where it's intimate, because that's where you get the most connection to me. And that's something where I'm excited about doing that for next year.
Are you wanting to do it close to home, like staying in the Durham area, or are you planning to do it across the country?
That's a good question. I would probably do something here because there are a lot of really great places that I
Nice.
think would. And just for people who don't know, Durham is like the blackest in North Carolina. So when you talk about a city that already had a Black Wall Street and we have a Black mayor, and a good majority of the people that are in the city and the county that run the city are Black, it's a very Black centric, but still really open to everybody else as well. So there's already a community that's built into here. So I personally like to work with other people. Like, I don't have to do everything by myself. So if I'm thinking about, there are some organizations that I would want to partner with because they have the type of audience that I think would work well with me, then that's probably what I would do. So I would probably do it here. We might do it in Baltimore. You never know.
I
Out
love
there,
that. All
Baltimore might
right.
be a good place to do it too,
Yeah.
because I love Baltimore.
Absolutely. And we are definitely incorporating live shows into the conference as we move it forward. So
Mhm.
let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. I
Yes.
love it. I just have a few more questions for
Okay.
you, but I want you to talk about Black Biz Summit that's
Mhm.
happening in August because you
Mhm.
wanted to promote that, and I think it's very important. What inspired this event, and how does it support the entrepreneurial ecosystem?
So we have been doing it now for 3 years. And I brought
Congratulations.
it to the Small Business Center here in North Carolina because they already have an audience of entrepreneurs. And I wanted to do something that was focused on Black business. Durham was specifically where I wanted to do it based on the reasons that I had already mentioned. In addition to that, when you look at business, and I've been here a long time, there are things that come through the state, but they may skip over certain areas. For instance, when Black Enterprise came, even though the state capital is Raleigh, and there's plenty of Black people in Raleigh, and people keep moving here, they went to Charlotte to do the event. And I went to the thing that Black Enterprise did, and it was good. But I think that what happens with certain types of events, and this is not just anything bad about Black Enterprise, it was a good event, but they tend to rely on celebrity. So whether it's influencer celebrity or A-list celebrity or whoever, they rely on those types of people to bring people out. But what I felt like was missing was sometimes when you would go to sessions, what people would do is try to sell you a service or a product that they had. And so we don't do that. Like, my thing is to educate you. So I believe in things that are actionable that you can do that day, that you can learn, and that you can actually grow your business with. And so I'm not saying that some of the things that they didn't serve that purpose, but I am saying a lot of the stuff that I went to was like, oh yeah, I have so many followers. And then people are like, how did you do such and such? Oh, you just got to be consistent. Okay, you can be consistently not doing shit. Okay.
Word up.
Is that going to help me grow? And
Yes.
so for me, it was just like, yeah, I see that. And this happens all over. And so I don't think it's necessarily clickbait, but I think that what happens is people want to be around celebrities, right? They want to be around people that have already made all of this money. I want to know how you got there. I want to know the transition. I want to know real things. So, like, for instance, this year we had our keynote speaker, which was Victoria Scott Miller. And Victoria Scott Miller, bad. You don't even understand how excited I was to get her. And part of that came because we had sponsorship too. So the thing about her is she had the first Black owned children's bookstore in Raleigh and in North Carolina. And she has so many firsts that she's done. And she ended up closing her store because she was getting death threats. This goes back to our history. So I'm getting death threats because I'm selling books to teach children how to read. It can't be any more full circle than you see what's happening now. And now I'm seeing in some places they're burning books
Hmm.
now still that don't fit into these curriculums that people are bringing out. And it's an erasure of history so that this way it sets the tone for the day. And so we're going to continue that because I think that it's good for everybody to be in one space and hear the same thing. And then people go into breakout sessions to learn things that they want to learn. And for me, I see what people are able to do. And we've been able to expand where we've been able to help people actually get their certification for MWBE businesses, hub businesses. We had partnered with Google for the last couple of years. And so with Google being there, people are actually able to get their pages up or get some things done that they didn't even know how to do, working with YouTube. We always have somebody there that's about funding and financing, right? Not a bank, but somebody that's, this is what you need to do in order to get yourself ready for things, or these are other things that you didn't even know existed for you to be able to get capital for your business. So for me, it's always about that. And then I always focus in some way, shape, or form about marketing. And so this is going to be our 4th year. It's August 1st. So it's always first Friday in August. And really what we are is the kickoff to Black Business Month. So this year, what we're going to do is we are going to also incorporate like a Black passport. so that this way people spend intentionally on specific days with Black businesses. And there are a lot of Black businesses that people don't even know that are Black, or people just don't patronize because maybe you weren't thinking about it. And so being able to kick off the month, but then also being able to make sure that we are actually putting our dollars back into the community makes a difference. And so at the summit, we do have exhibitors, and then we do have vendors as well. And so I always try to track like what the numbers are. Did they make money? And everybody always makes money. So it's never a question of that. We try to keep the amount of vendors small, people that are actually selling something, because we want people to spend with them. We usually do about 20 exhibitors and vendors together, but we still make that probably a quarter of what the total is, because if you have a small number, you do want to spend money. I know it's going to them, as opposed to me trying to have 20 people that are there and then everybody else is a resource partner. So now you get to know the things that you need, insurance or other programs or cohorts that are coming up, other things with grants. And so we are very intentional about making sure that technology is always a part of it, and our speakers know what they're talking about, and that it is a communal feeling. And so when we say we give it to the people, just being able to sit and have lunch with people, like to be able to have that conversation. Oh, I didn't know that. And then what we see is people keep coming back every year. And we also see that it grows every year. And so we are right now one of the largest conferences, or the largest probably in North Carolina, for Black business. So there are other things that are bigger than what we do. But when we talk about specifically focusing on just business, we are the largest right now. And I'm probably going to keep it that way because we're just going to keep growing.
Absolutely.
Yes. Economic development for people to come into the state too. So if you don't live in North Carolina, guess what? August 1st, you should come down here. Amazing hotels, wonderful food, and you'll have a great day with us.
Yes, and yes. I love all of that. Congratulations for this
Thank
being
you.
your fourth year. We could talk about how not easy it can be.
Mhm.
Is really those days that you are with the people that you have
Yes.
created all of this for.
Yeah.
Really, congratulations for that. I definitely want to be in the building for the next one.
Yes.
So, and you are speaking my heart when it comes to we want to bring and present to people. It's not sponsors who are simply there to influence you out of your money,
Mm.
but to really support you, to share knowledge and information that sometimes is inaccessible,
Mhm.
right? Google is free, but when we are working, especially us as a
Mhm.
people, when we are working and creating and really working hard to become, it
Mhm.
gets hard to lift up our heads to say,
Mm.
okay, what's next, or who's left to my right can support me or contribute to my work, and who
Mhm.
can I contribute to.
Mhm.
It gets hard to lift up our heads for that sometimes. And
Mhm.
so having a place for people to gather and to feel supported and to be champion and to also benefit and get information out of it is
Mhm.
so crucial for this time.
Yes, it definitely is. And if we don't do it for ourselves, there are other opportunities for things that you can attend. So I'm not saying I'm the only thing that you can go to. But what I am saying is it's Black, blackity black. And you should be greeted when you walk in the door. And that's why I tell people, if you come by yourself, you should still feel good. Like you shouldn't feel like I got to sit in the corner. No. And that's how it's a vibe, it's a feeling. And the thing is, you can't get it unless you come. So you can see it in pictures, but it's a feeling when you're there. And one thing I can say, like specifically about the one that we did 2024, is people went in the audience crying early in the morning. And the other thing is, we had elected officials there. So I had two mayors there, we had the congresswoman, we had city council members. And I need you to understand something. Those are busy people, right? Out of that, because he had a prior engagement, so he had to leave right after that. They thought they were just going to come just to say their piece, right? They couldn't leave. They were like, "Oh my God, I have to stay here." And they stayed because they wanted to see and they wanted to be a part of it. When you just got to think about the level of importance, how many things they have to go to, how many things do they go to that they don't want to go to? They did not want to leave. They wanted to stay. That was like a real ass affirmation for me. You could just, they wanted to be a part of it, and they were really happy and excited. And they were just like, I got to come back next year. We need to make sure when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? it automatically opens up other doors that you didn't think about, because then what people are saying is, oh, we need to sponsor this. We need to be a part of this. And I love how organized it was. And even our sponsors that came, they were just like, we haven't been to something that was like this and it felt like this. People put money out all the time, but when they feel like they really got their money's worth, that's a thing where you don't even have to count, because they're going to give again. As a person who's putting on these types of events, we don't want to have to sell it every year. But when they come and they're paying attention and they're engaged and people are coming up to them, they recognize that value, and you don't have to sell them again, because then they're asking, when is the next one? That is a testament to doing really great work and minding your business. Because for us, it is, we know we want to grow. And guess what? You can't grow without more money. People have to take into consideration, when you're charging for something, it's because you're getting value out of it, and everything can't be free. So I would encourage people to leave that mindset behind and understand, if you want these things to stay in existence, whether it's a small Black business or a Black conference or whatever it is, you have to invest with your presence and with those dollars. It has to be something that we do.
Yeah. As I'm listening to you about your summit, Afros and Audio is all up in that as well. And just that feeling and that experience is so important, because there are other events and conferences that does not bring that same experience to people. And you being capable and knowing that this is who you are, and so this is what you're going to give and provide, is everything. And why it's so important to support folks like yourself, people like myself,
And you too, yeah.
because we're not playing with y'all. We want y'all to be good and to have these experiences that are transformational. I say this:
Yes.
if it's transactional, I don't want no part of it. Do I
Yes.
need money? Yes, that's going to be exchanged, but this needs to be a transformational experience. When you walk
Yes.
through this door and out of it, you want to be changed, and for the
Mm-hmm.
better, of course. So
Yes.
respect. I love that. And me and you connected now. We're here. Can't wait to be more a part of what you have going on, because it is important work. And so much respect for that. Love
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. And like I said, it's appreciated, because when you stay one and it's year two, by the time it gets to year three, it's not a fluke. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to say that it was a fluke if it didn't go past year two, but I am trying to say, people do not realize how much work it takes to make these things happen. And as we continue to do it, we grow and we get better. And as we grow, we can offer more things. Listening to what people want is super important, because technology changes. And so we have to keep up with that, so that this way we can keep you current on the things that you need to be thinking about, or the next thing that's coming, or the next phase of whatever it is. And so it's certain things where I'm like, you know what, maybe I should start another podcast on something really specific. Just because, not like I need to start another anything, but sometimes titles, the name of something, where it's at, when it's hyper localized, those things can be powerful too. And so just really thinking about how you want to evolve and how you want to be represented. You can also think about, is there money that comes along with that can help me live my life, so I'm not just continually doing things just for the love of it, but also, if I said I want a podcast full time, I need to make adjustments in my life in order to podcast full time. It's not something I'm looking at, but could I see that being a wonderful career? Like, I love when I see sportscasters and they're doing their thing and then they have their podcast. And how much is your podcast making? Because I'm gonna tell you what, the way Cameron and Mason's doing it, I'm just like, okay, listen, I could get in the studio. We will build the studio. Don't play around. I turn my whole living room into a studio if necessary. It's something specific that they're doing, the way that they're delivering things. And then there's a magic that happens with saying, okay, this is worth something, and so you should pay me for those things. And I think that just has to be developed over time. And if people care enough to keep listening and keep leaving reviews, or if they're donating and supporting the cause, like, that's an important factor that we cannot overlook.
Absolutely. Listen, Chisa, this has been a great conversation. I've
Yes.
loved every minute of it. I appreciate your energy. Your hair is fly. I appreciate your colorful hair. Looking back at me while I'm looking at this shine at the top of my
It's
forehead.
okay, but it's
Um,
shining though. It's shining though. It's not
yeah,
ashy, right?
words. Can't say enough how fulfilling this conversation has been.
Yes.
My excitement for being connected now
Mhm.
in a way that we can continue to build,
Mhm.
support one another, and contribute in a way that's mutually beneficial. I
Mhm.
really look forward to that. That's what this is all about.
Everything.
I had more questions, but got caught up and asked more questions that didn't have nothing to do with the questions I had, which is how you supposed to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm not mad. But if you have anything that you want people to know about that's coming up, you want
Mhm.
them to be on their radar,
Mhm.
definitely shout that out. But also, of course, where people can find you,
Mhm.
website, social media, and any lasting words that you have.
Okay, so the one thing that I would say I want people to know is we do have a membership called Give It Get It membership. You can join. You can go to giveitgetit.biz. Join that. It is a free version and then there's a paid version. If you're a podcaster who does want to turn their podcast into a business and you're looking at the business aspects as far as marketing, funding, those types of things, that would be something that I think would be a really great thing for you to be able to join, even if you do the free membership. And so you'll see the nuances and the differences between free and paid. If you're looking for us online, you can go to giveittothepeople.com and find us on all of the platforms. The biggest thing is just think about really what you want to put out in the world because it is possible and there's no better time. There's no better technology. There's no better opportunity for you to be yourself. Give people exactly that in the way that you want it to be given because you have platforms like this where you can say whatever you want to say. So whether that's going to be you're doing it on a YouTube, a Spotify, a Apple, you're using Squadcast, whatever it is that you're using, use the things and allow that to then make room for your gifts so that it can go ahead and that room that's empty that's in your pocket, it can get filled up with some money. Okay, so that's what I want to say. And I always like to tell people, make sure you always show up and show out and continue to give it to the people.
Absolutely. Social media.
Give it to the people. But it's okay, look, it's a shortened version. So it's GIVIT and then the number two. THEPPL because we shortened it because of Twitter. We couldn't have give it to the people. It was too long. That and then if you want to follow me individually, it's just Chisa Pennix-Brown. So just type out my whole name. And it's a bunch of shenanigans over there. So if you want the shenanigans, then go over to Chisa Pennix-Brown. If you want the business stuff, go to give it to the people. But I'm here for the
All
shenanigans. So come on over there.
right. All right. Once again, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we are connected finally.
Yes.
And let's see what we can build together.
Let's do
And
it.